What might be on the line when Nebraska hosts Iowa on Black Friday? That's a question that could be answered a long time from now. That and more coming up.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Good evening, and thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money and use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year.
Welcome in to the Locked On Nebraska podcast. Good evening. As Connor said, good afternoon, good morning, whatever it is when you are listening. We will explain that schedule to you in a minute, how it's a bit different this week because of big happenings around Nebraska football and the Big Ten. But first, I'm Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Connor Happer, aforementioned, of 1620 The Zone, is with me. Big Ten players and coaches starting on Monday will make their way to Las Vegas, new home of Big Ten Media Days at the Mandalay Bay Resort. On Tuesday, which is day 1 of 3, we will hear from Illinois, Rutgers, Indiana, Maryland, Nebraska, and Ohio State. Among the teams in attendance on Tuesday 3 are set to bring their quarterbacks, that being Illinois' Luke Altmaier, Athan Kaliak-Manis back for season 12 in the Big Ten with Rutgers, and Dylan Raiola of Nebraska. So from us this week, we're starting early with a Sunday night show. No problem if you're catching this on Monday morning, but we wanted to give you a bit more time to digest what we have to discuss here ahead of Big Ten Media Days. We will have a new show to post that previews Nebraska's stint at Big Ten Media Days. That will be up on YouTube and all of the podcast listening platforms by 4:30 p.m. Central Time on Monday. So in time for your evening drive. And then on Tuesday in the late day, we will recap Nebraska's appearance at Big Ten Media Days. And then on from there with a show on Thursday and a mailbag on Friday. But right now, we're going to preview the Big Ten through the eyes of Nebraska's opponents this season. What is the question that we're asking? Are the 5 most compelling storylines within the conference among teams on Nebraska's schedule? So hopefully everybody got all that. Connor, hope you are well coming out of this hot weekend in Eastern Nebraska.
Yeah, long story short, we're gonna have pods in unconventional times this week. That's because
they'll still be there when you want them,
exactly.
When you need them, when you usually get them.
Just refresh the thing, and they're gonna be there for you. So let's dive into it. I think usually when you think about the conference, you think about, well, from a national perspective, you think about the top of it. Who are the teams in the league who have a chance to win a national championship? I think there are a couple, and then a few more playoff teams potentially, or a few more who have their eyes on the playoff. That'll be a thing that we'll be tracking all year long, but there's going to be a lot of attention on Penn State this year. So let's zoom in on them for a second. They are not the favorite to win the national championship. In fact, if you look at our friends from FanDuel Sportsbook right now, they're actually behind their rival Ohio State, even though they return all that they return, like a couple awesome running backs, an awesome quarterback, and a great defense. But many are saying that they had a little bit of a breakthrough last year. Is this the year that Penn State can put it all together and go all the way?
I think that's the question that we're asking. Is Penn State the favorite, or a favorite to win the national championship? And is Penn State the favorite to win the Big Ten? You say that the odds makers are appointing Ohio State as a higher favorite, a more likely choice to win the national championship. I believe that when the informal media preseason poll is unveiled, I expect that will be on Tuesday from the folks
very early in the morning,
Cleveland, yes, who do this dutifully every year, Cleveland.com. That Penn State is going to be atop that thing. Do you agree?
That is also my expectation. Yes.
All right. Well, part of the reason that Penn State is going to be atop that is because there's no chance at all. Well, this would be more of a national title discussion. So let's shift to that. There's no chance at all that Penn State will lose a non-conference game because it plays the Nevada Wolfpack, the Florida International Panthers, and that football power, the Villanova Wildcats coming to Beaver Stadium on September 13th before a nicely timed bye week when Penn State will then host Oregon, go to UCLA, Northwestern, at Iowa, bye week before the trip into the Horseshoe. Indiana, Michigan State on the road, Nebraska at Beaver Stadium in State College on November 22nd, and then Rutgers on the road after Thanksgiving to finish things out. That is what you would call a manageable schedule for James Franklin and his Penn State Nittany Lions, who made the college football playoff last year, hosted a game, smoked SMU, and then bowed out. Did Penn State bow out in the next round?
To Notre Dame in the Orange Bowl. That was one of the best games of the playoff, if I remember right. So I'm looking right now, calling up some odds from our friends from the FanDuel Sportsbook. How you just explained it, that sounds like a certain playoff team. That doesn't guarantee you're going to win the national championship.
Right.
Obviously, it puts you in the closer to the conversation. Penn State to make the playoff minus 290 on the FanDuel Sportsbook right now. And that's just to make it. Ohio State minus 320. And then there's the national championship odds, which we quoted earlier. Penn State plus 750 to win the title. Ohio State plus 600. Texas 550 is the favorite, with Georgia at 600.
I knew as I was saying that a minute ago that I had forgotten about a game in the playoff last year. So after Penn State beat SMU in the home stadium game, the Nittany Lions went to Glendale, Arizona for that memorable Fiesta Bowl, which was a 17-point win to eliminate Boise State. And then the 27-24 loss against Notre Dame in the Orange Bowl on January 9th. So that New Year's Eve game, what do you remember about that New Year's Eve game between Penn State and Boise? They did a pretty good job against Ashton Gency.
The Boise State game?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
because I forgot about it altogether.
Right. I remember that I thought it was close for like a second, and then after about the next 60 minutes, the next 58 minutes, I was like, yeah, I think I figured out who the better team is tonight. And so that was a box that I think they needed to check, right? And no, it doesn't come against one of the bigger, more comparable powers, but like, all right, if you're one of the best 5 teams in the country, or if you're one of the teams that recruits at that type of level, like you better take care of business. Like that better show in a game like that. And Boise State was game. They had one of the best players, if not the best player in the country last year. And then I thought they played, admirably against Notre Dame in the semifinal before they ended up bowing out of the thing. So, looking at James Franklin and thinking about his sort of run here, they have definitely kind of, it feels like to me, broken through, right? There was a question of can he win this? Can he win the big game? A lot of what they did when they were winning 11 games and 16 and 17 felt, they had that special teams play against Ohio State. They shouldn't have really won that game, and it kind of felt a little bit fluky. And now all of a sudden, 11 wins in 22, 10 wins in 23, and then 13 wins and a semifinal loss in 24. Like, I feel like, you probably need to put the label on them of national championship or bust, that type of team.
I would agree with that. I don't think Penn State breaks through as a true heavyweight. I mean, they're a heavyweight, but like the very small upper crust of college football, the teams that you just put in the box as national championship contenders, and Penn State is very much that this year. But I will stop short of saying that they have had the ultimate breakthrough under James Franklin until this team wins a Big Ten championship or beats Ohio State. And you would think beats Ohio State en route to winning a Big Ten championship. Lost to Ohio State last year, 20-13. in-state college, lost to Oregon in the Big Ten championship, 45-37. I think at that point, a lot of no one following Penn State would say, oh, we've had the breakthrough that we're looking for, even though you're in the playoff, but you're only in the playoff because the playoff expanded. And then because you got to play SMU and Boise State, you won 2 games and made the Final Four. So that's kind of a backdoor in to that upper crust. Penn State, to truly break through, has to come through the front door, and that's beating Ohio State.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that's fair. I just think they've definitely taken a step or a half step up. You need to definitely stand in their firm, but it does feel like they're closer to even playing field with the rest of what they want to be their peers in college football. So I think with that comes some pressure, and they definitely have the tools to do it. I mean, they have like 2 of the best running backs in the country, and they're both in the same backfield. I mean, Singleton and Katron Allen are just awesome. Drew Aller is returning, All-American type, like Heisman type. If they, whatever happens, I don't think they'll be terribly explosive on offense, but they just have so many players that could beat you one-on-one. And then their defense is awesome. They're always going to have a great pass rusher. So I think this is probably with Ohio State, and Ohio State is changing over quarterbacks. This is probably the class of the league. You'd put Ohio State and Penn State on the same pedestal right now.
The window's open. Oregon's got a new quarterback. Michigan's got a new quarterback. Ohio State's got a new quarterback. Like, this is this is like, do it now for if you're Penn State, and unequivocally the most difficult game on paper on the Nebraska schedule. They're on the road November 22nd. Think about what that weather could be like, what that environment could be like if Penn State's making a charge for a championship, trying to maybe keep an undefeated season alive. The Nittany Lions are up Wednesday in Las Vegas. Quarterback Drew Aller, offensive lineman Nick Dawkins, safety Zakee Wheatley will be alongside James Franklin at the Mandalay Bay. So look forward to that on Wednesday. We've got 4 more questions about teams on Nebraska's schedule to get to in this episode, starting with one on the opposite side of the country that plays in the Coliseum, and they'll be coming to Lincoln this year. That is next.
But first, a word from our friends at Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center where you can track all your accounts, investments, spending, all in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you are also building wealth. Like we said, maybe there is a big purchase coming up in the future. Wouldn't it be great to get on the same page with whoever you might be combining forces with to make that big purchase? This is once again, financial command center. You can have access to all of the things that Monarch Money offers you, and what a sweet deal we have for you. Take control of your finances today with Monarch Money and use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, half off your first year. All right, welcome back. Connor Happer, Mitch Sherman with you here on a Sunday evening as we gear up for Big Ten Media Days, and we take just a small peek into the window of some other Big Ten programs, but each of which are going to be on Nebraska's schedule this year. How about USC? The USC and Nebraska, Mitch, oftentimes get put on the same, if you're making a tier list of Big Ten teams, we were just talking about Penn State and Ohio State, same kind of thing. A tier down or 2 tiers down, whatever you'd like to say, USC and Nebraska are often on the same tier. Both coaches, maybe, I don't know if the seat is the same temperature, but, needing a breakthrough, I think, needing to kind of take it to that next level. Otherwise, some frustration may set in. So we ask you this: which program is in a better place at the moment? Is it USC or Nebraska?
Well, I mean, for as much as both of these programs are historically relevant in college football, they are judged quite a bit differently because I would say of the environments in which they play. Like if USC were to go through a period like what Nebraska has experienced in the last decade, or you say 2 decades, it wouldn't even be on the map, wouldn't even be on the radar. Like you get buried by everything that's going on in Los Angeles. In Nebraska, there is more patience. And I think the head coaches as a result are gauged differently. USC clearly has had more success in recent years than Nebraska. In 3 years under Lincoln Riley, USC 11-3, 8-5, 7-6. So there's not much of an argument to have right there because of what USC's done on the field recently. But before that, 4-8. Trojans were 8-5 in 2019, 5-7 in 2018. Had a couple of double-digit win seasons before that under Clay Helton. That stuff's irrelevant at this point. Trojans were in a different conference. The thing that matters is that they're coming off a 7-6 season and 4-5 in the conference. So similar to Nebraska in that regard. I would say that there's more momentum, more of a positive vibe around the program in Lincoln than there is in Los Angeles. And that's despite the fact that USC is recruiting out of this world in the 2026 class with Lincoln Riley. Like that's one program as much as any in the country. You got to prove it on the field.
Yeah. And we'll see if they have it figured out at quarterback. That's always going to be they had Caleb Williams in the first year.
Right. There's the 11 wins.
Yeah, that was pretty okay for them. And Miller Moss and Iamaleava last year.
Jaden Iamaleava will be the guy. He was a good guy against Nebraska last year, and he's the guy in the
I'm not convinced, I'm not convinced that he will be the guy this year. So I don't think they're convinced of that either. Maybe that's something we'll get more information on this week at Big Ten Media Day. So, right. I mean, we're talking about those kind of problems for USC. Nebraska doesn't have to answer that, right? You know what's funny? Over the weekend, one of the clips that I saw just scrolling through or whatever was the play where Nebraska threw it to the end zone late and Jamal Banks was clearly held and pass interfered with.
I do remember that.
And we just kind of buzzed by that one. Nebraska's season was in a different place at that point, and little tiny thing all of a sudden changes the outlook. So it's not like USC is, I don't know what the perspective is nationally on these programs against each other, but it's not like USC is in that much more terrific of a place. And in fact, I do think you make the argument that Nebraska has a little bit more juice behind them, a little bit more positive momentum behind them. Doesn't mean they're going to beat them on the field. A lot of that comes down to schedule, but at the very least, from a general perspective, I do think these two programs are pretty comparable at the moment.
Let me just read to you for a second before we move on to the other program in Los Angeles. The 3 teams that USC plays before it comes to Memorial Stadium on November 1st. At Illinois, ranked in the preseason, presumably. Tricky. Michigan come into the Coliseum. At Notre Dame. Those are the 3. They're not the 3 weeks before they play Nebraska because there are 2 byes mixed into that stretch, into that 3-game or that 4-game stretch, which includes Nebraska. There's a bye after Illinois and there's a bye after Notre Dame before Lincoln Riley and the Trojans come to Lincoln. But that's a dicey portion of the schedule right in the middle, to say the least, for that team. And it's likely going to be season defining, and the Trojans are on the tail end of it. Some might say the most dicey stretch of their season is over before USC gets to Nebraska. Certainly Notre Dame fits into that category. But USC also with the Notre Dame is part of the non-conference schedule. So we can't say anything negative about USC's non-conference schedule because they've got Notre Dame as a non-conference.
Yeah, for now, once again, they're trying to get out of that, or they successfully got, I can't remember where we left that story, but USC is trying to bail out of the series, one of the more historic college football rivalries that we have. So times
Irish are on the schedule for USC this year and in 2026. The 2027 schedule, as it appears now, does not include Notre Dame. Wow. So
And
if you're Lincoln
that's
Riley,
USC's problem.
If you're Lincoln Riley and you flush that series down the toilet, man, you better win 12, 13, 14, 15 games to keep people happy out there. Otherwise, the seat will get hot fairly soon.
No doubt about it. The other team in LA, it's us and USC. Who is us in this scenario is Deshaun Foster's UCLA Bruins, who are going to be quarterbacked by Nico Iamaleava this year, the talk of the offseason, because he demanded more money from Tennessee and then left Tennessee just to end up probably not getting as much money as he thought he was going to get, and not having a whole bunch of suitors, but ending up at UCLA, where I don't know what is the temperature on Nico. It's kind of interesting. I mean, UCLA I think is viewed as a team who's sort of surged a little bit at the end of last year. Their win against Nebraska, was mildly momentous for them, and now they bring in this guy who is the face of all of this offseason garbage that we talk about. It's an odd situation.
You remember that the Nico Iamaleava landing at UCLA involved essentially the first ever trade in college football, because Joey Aguilar from UCLA, who was competing for the starting job in Los Angeles, is now in Knoxville at Tennessee for Josh Heupel. So just something to remember when the Bruins are up on Tuesday at Big Ten Media Days. Oh, and I said Penn State's the Bruins are up Wednesday, the second day. No, I'm sorry. The Bruins are up Thursday, day 3. I'm very prepared for this show right here. All right. So UCLA and USC are both up on Thursday, day 3 in Vegas. I think the temperature around Nico is pretty warm, as in like they're excited about him. You look at what he did last year. He beat Alabama, threw for 200 yards, touchdown, nice day, statistically decent day. He beat Florida in overtime, had a good day doing that. Beat Oklahoma, similar stats, 194 yards, threw for a touchdown. Lost by a couple scores to Georgia, beat Mississippi State, which is terrible, beat Kentucky. I mean, obviously Tennessee had a good season, and it was because of a lot of people, and he was a big part of it. Having been at the Tennessee-Ohio State game in the college football playoff, I saw what statistically was Nico's worst game of the year, 14 of 31, 104 yards. Didn't throw a pick, but he was sacked 4 times in that game. Coming into that, like all the talk around the horseshoe before that game was what's Nico going to do? The balls are going to go as far as Nico can take them. And I think he'll bring a similar line of talking points to Westwood. And that will be the subject when Nebraska goes out there and makes its return to the Rose Bowl. It has been some time since the Huskers played in the Rose Bowl.
2012?
Okay. Yeah. Home and home with the Bruins then.
Yeah. 2012 was out there. 2013 was in Lincoln, right?
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
That was the home and home. By the way, UCLA opening up with Utah, and then going to UNLV and New Mexico to finish out their non-con. And then they start with a trip to Chicago to take on Northwestern, and then welcome in Penn State to the Rose Bowl early in October. So
yeah. That game against Nebraska is November 8th at the Rose Bowl. So if you want to get out of the state of Nebraska as it begins to get cold, I recommend making that trip.
That's a good destination, that's for sure. All right, quick timeout. We have 2 more storylines we want to hit on. One involves our dear friends from across the Missouri River after this.
All right, back with you on a Sunday/Monday episode of the Locked On Nebraska podcast. We'll have another episode out on Monday late in the afternoon to preview everything that's going on with Matt Rule and the Huskers when they set foot in Las Vegas for several hours of question and answer session. Also on Tuesday, we will hear from Tony Petitti, the Big Ten commissioner, and there will be many questions about the college football playoff. We expect, and this is kind of a part of the preview of the league, we expect that Petitti is going to stand firm on what the Big Ten has backed to date when it comes to the playoff expansion after the 2025 season. And that is a 4-team guarantee for the Big Ten and the SEC, 4 teams each to get into the playoff. As of now, there is no other league out there that supports that system.
That's because it's stupid, Mitch. So yes, I don't know why they're doing this, but yes.
that would be an excellent way to phrase the question for Commissioner Petitti. Do you know that the system you're supporting is stupid?
Do you know why you're the only league who wants this? Because it's stupid. Nobody else that's why nobody else wants it.
I like it. I'll leave it to somebody to ask that question.
Yeah,
I do expect a lot to hear a lot from Petitti, and I know that our writers from The Athletic will have a crew of myself, Scott Docterman, Stuart Mandel, Bruce Feldman. We'll be sitting down. Some of us, at least, will be sitting down with the commissioner at some point on Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday to discuss all of this stuff. That's in addition to his big podium session where he'll talk about how great the Big Ten is on Tuesday midday. All right. When Michigan comes, let's start with Michigan and finish with Iowa. When Michigan comes to Memorial Stadium on September 20th, as of now, Sherrone Moore, the Wolverines coach, will not be in attendance. Michigan has suspended him for 3 games at the start of the season, and he's going to hop right on over that Oklahoma game, sit out a couple of non-con games, and then also sit out the Big Ten opener in Lincoln. Did Sherrone Moore make a mistake? Did Michigan make a mistake in suspending its coach for his role in the spying, the signal stealing gate that was masterminded by Connor Stallions? Did they make a mistake in keeping him out of a Big Ten game when obviously that could have ramifications on Michigan's ability to compete for a Big Ten championship?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's a couple different legs to this. Number one, we don't know what the NCAA is going to levy against Michigan at this point in terms of penalties.
Isn't it about time to do that?
Yeah, I would think so. And the reason why you continue to do all these self-inflicted suspensions is to sort of appease the NCAA to, with the hope that, okay, you're acting in an act of contrition or something like that. So we'll take it a little bit easier on you. So we don't know if that's going to work.
True.
I don't, they're mildly cooperative, I guess, at this point, and they've admitted some sort of wrongdoing, but we'll see exactly what that ends up being. So it might be a mistake from that perspective as well. Some teams would just choose to say, bleep this. You guys want to come after us? Okay, find what you want to find and then do what you're going to do after you complete your investigation. And then as far as the game is concerned, I mean, it's a tricky game for them. It's a road game for a freshman quarterback in a hostile environment. Both teams are, going to be in really good shape, I think, going into the game earlier in the season. Everybody's got some, juice behind them. You feel like you want to have the stabilizing presence of your coach there probably. But on the other hand, Michigan is so used to this. They're so used to shuffling in the coaching staff, whether it be in the game, during the game, and whatever it might be, that I don't know. It's hard to say how much of an impact it'll actually have, but you have to believe there's some sort of impact to it.
According to, and I believe I remember this at the time that the suspension was, or that Michigan made its ruling. According to an ESPN article that I'm getting brief, I'm looking back at now to brief myself on this situation. He is prohibited from participating in all football related activities during the weeks of his suspension. So he's planning right now to sit week 1 against New Mexico, week 3 against Central Michigan, and week 4 against Nebraska. And this is unlike what Jim Harbaugh did when he sat in some games in his final season with Michigan, as it race to the national championship, because he would coach them during the week and then just sit at home on his couch while Sherrone Moore coached in some big games for Michigan during that 2023 season. So this is a little different because he's going to have to be out of service as Michigan prepares to come to Memorial Stadium, that CBS national TV 2:30 p.m. from Memorial Stadium on September 20th. So yeah, I think they may look back at that and say that was a mistake. Of course, that's all going to be determined by whether Nebraska can find a way to win that game.
Exactly. And then our final storyline that we'll get into here before we dive into Nebraska tomorrow. What are the stakes on Black Friday? We talked about the Penn State game earlier. Nebraska will be 6 days off of the Penn State game. What will be at stake when Nebraska plays host to Iowa the day after Thanksgiving? What will be on the line?
Pride. There's no Big Ten West to fight over anymore. I say pride because are either of these teams realistically going to be competing for a top 2 spot in the Big Ten in order to play for the Big Ten championship? Or do we think that either of these two teams, and this is a more realistic question, are either of these two teams going to be in contention for the college football playoff when the Hawkeyes come to Memorial Stadium on Black Friday?
No, but not for sure. No, you know what I mean? Okay. I think there's a possibility of that, but yeah, probably still not. Who
do you have as more likely on this day, on July 20th or 21st?
I just have to go with history and say Iowa. I think at this point, Nebraska has a higher ceiling as a team. They always they pretty much have this entire time. But Iowa knows how to win football games, so give me them.
Yeah, when I look at Iowa's schedule and I think about the Hawks as a CFP contender, and can Iowa do that? And I see a difficult game at Iowa State in week 2. I see a trip to I see 2 trips for the top 10, seemingly top 10 teams, or 2 of the 3 seemingly top 10 teams in the Big Ten coming to Kinnick Stadium. Penn State comes to Iowa on October 18th. Oregon comes to Iowa on November 8th. The Hawks have to go to USC to play. It's not an easy schedule. I would say Nebraska has an easier schedule than Iowa to get itself to what? You need to be 9-2 on Thanksgiving in order to have a shot.
If you're one of Nebraska or Iowa at the very least. Yes.
I mean, I think 10-2 from either one of those teams is going to have them in the conversation, at least to the place where going into the last week of the season before the conference championship games and the Thanksgiving weekend games. If you're 9-2 and you're in the Big Ten, I would think that either one of those teams, if they're 9-2, is thinking, hey, we got a shot. Like, here's what needs to happen. This team might have to lose. Something might have to get moved around. But I think you have a shot as a 10-2 team in the Big Ten to make the CFP.
Yeah, you do. You most certainly do. It's a little easier for the Ohio States and the Penn States of the world, but you're in the conversation.
And looking at Nebraska's schedule, I think Nebraska has a better chance to be 9-2 on Thanksgiving than Iowa does. I came to that conclusion just right now, looking at Iowa's schedule.
I'm looking at the Big Ten connected bowl games this year. Both teams could be in the same realm, jockeying for position, just as they were last year in the bowl game world. So the top non-playoff bowl game for the conference is what? The Vegas Bowl? Oh no, I got to go to New Year's. New Year's Day is interesting this year because it's on a Thursday.
Is it the Capital One Bowl, the former Outback Bowl?
I guess, but when is that? Oh, I'm looking at the schedule right now. You have the ReliaQuest Bowl. That's the one in Tampa now. The ReliaQuest Bowl. And then there's the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl, which is also an SEC Big Ten game. These games are taking place on New Year's Eve, apparently, this year, not New Year's Day.
So what we're saying is that you might have bowl jockeying. Yeah. That's most likely to be what's at stake when Nebraska and Iowa meet up.
Would you rather go to Tampa or Orlando? That would that's might be an important question regarding that game.
Yeah.
All I know is there will be many Bull reps wearing their suit jackets in Memorial Stadium on Black Friday.
Capital One, by the way, is just the sponsor of the Orange Bowl. So
yeah, Capital One. It's not the Capital One Bowl. I think that's the one that turned into the Relia Quest. I think.
Where's that game?
Tampa.
Okay, yeah, that's the old Outback.
Yeah.
All right, we'll have a better handle on the Big Ten bowl picture later on when it's not 100 degrees outside, and we can think about Big Ten schedules and how things are going to break down. Today was more just about looking at Nebraska's opponents as a preview to Big Ten Media Days. So remember, we will be back for a show later in the day on Monday, late in the day on Monday, 4:30 p.m. is when we expect to have that posted. And in that episode, you will get our thoughts on Nebraska's appearance Tuesday at Big Ten Media Days in Las Vegas. Thanks for listening today and making Locked On Nebraska your first listen. For your second listen, check out the Portal Show. Brian Smith is there with all the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to the college football landscape. Find the Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts.